Hey guys, my name is Timio, and today I want to go over some new operator ideas for Rainbow Six Siege. One question that I get pretty much every day is, what do you think the new classes are going to be like in the upcoming DLC? Like, what kind of gadget do you think that they're going to have at their disposal? And so I've compiled a list. Some of these are my own ideas. Some of these are something that I've seen scattered around the internet that's been very popular, and we'll kind of go from there. And so one defensive operator that I am convinced that will be added into the game is one that has the ability to place cameras on the ceiling or on a wall. As we all know, cameras are very effective on defense if the enemy neglects to take them out at the start of the match. I cannot tell you how many times I got basically a free kill from the knowledge that I gathered from a camera. The problem is that because we're about 2 months after the game has released, pretty much everyone knows the camera spots, and they take them out as soon as they enter the room. And while that knowledge is still valuable, it gives you a general idea of where the enemy is going to be coming from, you're not able to pull off those awesome kills that you could originally gotten if that camera was still alive and active. And so how cool would it be if you could toss one of these things up onto a ceiling or place it next to a wall like Jaeger's trophy system? It may not be as flashy as a sledgehammer, but in the right hands, and if the team knows how to use it effectively, it could be a very valuable gadget for your team. The reason why I like this operator so much is that not only does it just fit the theme of Rainbow Six Siege where knowledge is power, but it also emphasizes teamwork, which I think is also a very important facet of this game. It could have some cool synergies with some other classes. Tachanka really needs some loving, but one way that you could upgrade him or make him at least somewhat more viable is if you paired him with his operator. Let's call him Camera Boy. If Camera Boy placed his gadget next to a high traffic area, Tachanka could then position himself where he has line of sight of that through a wall, for example, not opening up the wall, just kind of sitting there, and then as soon as the enemy starts to make their way up that pathway, up the staircase, Tachanka can lay into them with the knowledge of the camera that's being relayed to him by Camera Boy. That's just one scenario. Just in general, I love this idea. Some people might think that it's underpowered, some people might think that it's overpowered, but I think if Ubisoft implement it correctly, this could be a really fun and interesting new operator added into Rainbow Six. Another idea that I had was to add in a mini thermite. One complaint that I've had for quite some time is that if your team does not have a thermite on some matches, or let's say he dies before he's able to detonate his charges, it can put your team at a massive disadvantage. There are some objectives where if you're not able to breach in with thermite, there's only 2 access routes. It's pure insanity. Like, it almost makes it impossible to actually win those rounds by playing the objective when you are on offense. And so instead of just adding in another thermite into the mix, instead of just adding in basically a copy and paste thermite 2.0, I think it would be interesting if there was a class that wouldn't necessarily be able to breach into a room, but had the ability to make basically murder holes on offense, but through the reinforced walls. As much as I don't really enjoy playing as Buck, I really like the idea on offense of having murder holes at your disposal. Using his shotgun to open up a wall really quickly and then taking anyone out that's inside of a room is incredibly satisfying. And so to be able to do that, but with a thermite charge, to be able to blow or open up a small little hole on offense sounds really appealing. The only thing I can think of for why Ubisoft wouldn't want to add something like this into the game is that it lessens the role of thermite because you now have someone else that can kind of do his job, but it also makes the reinforced walls not as viable, and so they may not want to go down that direction. Personally, I think it's an amazing idea. It would make people inside of the room a little bit more skittish when they think that they have the protection of the reinforced walls. It doesn't blow it out completely like a thermite charge, but it would add in, I think, a very interesting dynamic into the game. Another operator that I am really hoping is added into the game is one that has the ability to place down a motion sensor. Any enemy that kind of walks by its vicinity, it will all of a sudden start to make a lot of noise, kind of like the metal detectors do right now. Now, a lot of you are thinking this sounds like a defensive operator, and it would work fine on defense, but I want this on offense. You might be scratching your head at this point like, why, what? You want it on offense? That sounds exclusively like a defensive gadget. The reason why I want it on offense is I want there to be a counter to roamers. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to clear out an entire floor and then when you think it's clear, have an enemy come from another section of the map, like the basement for example, and shoot you while you're trying to play the objective in the back. I'm not saying that roamers should not be a part of Rainbow Six Siege. I think it should be a very effective tactic. I want there to be the role of roaming, but I also wish wish that there was some way of countering, or so that it wasn't as easy on some of these maps. Oregon is a prime example of this. Oregon is so large and there's so many different cubby holes that the enemy can hide in, it's impossible to cover every single part of that map and make sure that it's clear. And so if there was a gadget in the game where you could place it on down, it doesn't kill the enemy, it doesn't do anything to that nature, but if they stepped in its vicinity, it would go off to notify you that someone is about to flank you in the ass. I think that that would be a step in the right direction. Maybe this is just my frustration speaking, and that could be, but I think if they implement it well enough, it could add in a different meta from what we have right now so that we do have a counter to these players, or at least a very small counter. I'm not recommending that they blow up into a fireball, like it doesn't instantly kill the player if they do get notified, but it would require thought on both people who are involved in this situation. The person who places it down needs to give themselves at least some breathing room, so as soon as the gadget goes off, the enemy isn't right on them, so they need to place it at least a little bit away, but also the person who is roaming needs to be maybe a little bit more observant to their surroundings so that they don't set off the gadget, or if they do, they need to approach it and try to tackle that engagement from a different angle. And so while I know that some people might disagree with me on this one, I think that if done correctly, it could add in a different meta from what we have right now. But yeah, those are the 3 new ideas I have for some classes in Rainbow Six Siege. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you have any creative concepts. I know that some people have been bouncing around the idea of having someone that has like a thermal scope, kind of similar to what we have with Glaz. Some other people are talking about maybe having the ability to turn off the lights on certain sections of the map, call them like blackout, for example. All these are very interesting ideas, and so if you have any concepts, let me know down below. I am very curious to see what you guys come up with. But yeah, guys, until tomorrow, have a good one and take it easy.